Hello and welcome. For those of you that have been trying to decide what to do after hitting max level, there are two things to kind of work on that I found a lot of joy in Lost Ark outside of making my character more powerful, and that is going back through old continents and finishing out my Adventurer's Tome, which is a large amount of just kind of exploring these zones and leveling up my roster, which benefits all of the characters I would have on a given roster. I don't know exactly how this works, but I am working my way through this, and it gives a whole bunch of bonus stats, very similar to a Diablo Paragon system. But one of the ways that I've been getting roster experience is with the really satisfying feeling beginning down the road of the collectibles here. So I've just kind of started down this road. I've got 72 of the 1209 Mokoko Seeds, and so you can sort these kind of by zone and see how many there are. A lot of these I haven't even been to those zones yet, so I've got plenty of world left to explore, but when we go back to the first area, Rethramas in Udia, you actually see that Prideholm is complete, so I wanted to sit down and share where these 9 are today, starting with this really obvious one here. When you get them, they glow, and they also mark on your map. You can see I have 9 of 9. You can see it labeled here, and as I leave that, I can tab that map open so you can kind of see where we're going. The next one here actually does have, it's still just as obvious, but next to it here, there is a little investigation tome here, and if you go ahead and open that tome, that is actually Karumba's cat. So if you want to go ahead and read a tombstone to a cat and get you a little check mark for that, that'll move forward that progression for kind of the whole continent. As we work our way up, we can actually go ahead and see one of the ones that kind of shows how these can be a little bit tricky. Because of the fixed camera angle here, there's one right around this corner, and you're going to see this quite a bit. You can barely see the glowing here, but when it's not glowing, you really have trouble finding it, and it's just that you're kind of pushing along these walls, and eventually it'll open up to tell you to interact with it, and that's how you know you found the seed. So just know that some of them are going to be a little bit tricky just due to camera angles. Most of the ones in Prideholm here are pretty straightforward because this is kind of the starting zone. They want you to realize, like, hey, check next to, like, the mailbox here, or check next to this little lion statue down here, to kind of get you in the habit. But when you start putting them behind tall grass, tucked behind a tree, this one here, starting to hide behind a tree, still fairly obvious. They do get a little bit trickier when you get into other zones. Keep in mind that some of the ones in other zones are locked behind things like sheet music. So some of the ones I don't have, I've seen them, but I can't get them. This one here was actually the first one I think I ever interacted with here by this big tree. And then the last one here shows one more tricky thing they can do besides locking them behind sheet music or quest progression or anything like that. And that is that they can literally lock them off the level. So as we work our way down here, if you just kind of run along this wall, it will eventually drop you off the level. And so you can dip down here, and there is not one, but 2 Mokoko Seeds. And so that is a good way. You're seeing these people kind of working their way towards that. That is a good way to go ahead and get those last couple. While you're here, there is a little hidden letter tucked back behind the altar here. So you can actually work your way back and investigate that as well. But that should get you kind of squared away in Prideholm outside of checking in with your 2 rapport people here, the bad cook and the flute lady. So easy enough to kind of progress this zone. If you like me making things like this and want me to share this progression, I want to start with one of the easiest zones, and I'm happy to share my journey as I work further and further and further into this game with you. You just have to let me know down below that you appreciate this sort of thing, and that you'd like more of it. Otherwise, I will just do it on my own time, because I'm doing this either way. I'm having an absolute blast with this game, and I wanted to share kind of my journey into finding some of the things that have been lost in Lost Ark. Kinda.